Okay, now that we have our line art done, it's time to start putting the base colors in. First of all, if you want a different background color for your final painting, now is the time to change it, because when you're choosing your colors on the skin tones and stuff, your background really makes a difference on how they appear. So for this, let's go ahead and change that background color. We're going to select background, the layer background, and I'm going to go and I'm going to pick kind of a mid-tone gray. That'll actually appear pretty dark. Let's do it a little bit lighter than that. And then I'm just going to fill it, and there's two ways to do this. I'm going to hit Command Delete, and that just fills it. Alternately, you can choose this Fill Bucket tool. You have to make sure it's on Paint Bucket. And then there's some different settings up here, so you want to make sure that's at 100%. And then just click into the layer, and that'll, oops, I had the one in the foreground is what's going to fill it. So that'll fill it. Okay, and then you want to put some base colors in. You want it behind your sketch layer, but in front of your background layer. So we're going to go ahead and make a new layer there, and you can name it if you want. And I'll just put this as like base colors. And we're going to go ahead and select it's just any skin tone to begin with. The first thing we're really going to do is just kind of fill in the line art with whatever we want. So let's go through. If you're making her Caucasian, which I'll do for this video just because I'm more familiar with it, you kind of want, to go in this red area and then kind of pick the higher saturation is on this side of the color palette. Obviously this is the, more desaturated area, so you kind of want to go in this area for a base color, I find. And then we're going to take my brush and I'm going to bump it up with the bracket key. And if you missed how to do that, you can right click and just choose your diameter this way, or there's the bracket keys on your keyboard. If you push them, they'll change the size of your brush. And I have my opacity at 100, flow at 100. Make sure my hardness isn't too high. It's not. So that's, I'm going to make my hardness just a little bit more, about in the middle. And that will give me softer edges. So now I'm just going to literally just fill in her entire face. It's a bit bright for her skin, but it doesn't really matter because not a whole lot of this color will show up in the very end. And we can put in her neck and her shoulders. Probably won't be doing too much detail down here. Concentrate mostly on the face for the video. Oh, doesn't matter. I'm hitting Command Z. Just kind of fill it in. Not a big deal if there's some areas. And then fill the rest of that in. And it's okay if you go over, like in these areas, you want to do the hair and stuff. A lot of times I'll do the hair separately. It's okay if you want to do it on the same layer. We can add a little bit of hair. Let's make her brunette. So a little bit darker here. And this is the color that this is your old color, this is your new color. So let's kind of make her brunette, not too saturated with the hair. That's probably good. And then I'm going to make my brush a little bit lower here and just kind of fill in this a bit. It's okay that it looks blocky. This hair detail will be taken care of in the future, but that'll definitely be on another layer. So we'll just fill in some hair, get an idea of her shape. And don't go too crazy if you are worried about going over the lines, like I'm nicking the brown into the ear color a bit. It's not too much of a worry at this time because we're going to be refining this a lot. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I can fix this. If you want just a quick grab of this, you just hit the Option key. Again, these are for Macs. I don't know what the ones for Windows are. Then you can just go through and kind of fix them up a bit. Oops, there we go. That's good enough. Okay, and you can do a double quick check, make sure it's about the shape you want. You could, by hiding your sketch layer, click this little eye right next to the layer, and you can see that's just the basic shape now of your painting. And sometimes you can see things like I'm definitely going to bring her chin out a bit more when I finalize this and stuff. It's not too much of a worry at this point. I'm gonna start working on refining doing the shading now. And you can do a new layer if you want. I'm not gonna worry too much about it. I'm just gonna keep going on this one. But so going on with the sketch, what we're gonna do is we're gonna see like areas where there would be shading and highlights, and we're gonna add those in. So to start with, let's go ahead and pick a color for the shading. Well, we'll do it a little bit darker. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit X to switch my colors here and pick a lighter color for the highlights, and I'm going to bump that more into a yellow color range, and that'll be, so those are my highlights and those are my shadows, and I know they're very blocky right now, but that's okay. That's what we want, kind of exaggerate them. So areas where there'll be shadows, definitely under her hair. We'll have some shadows, and this is usually when you want the separate layer for the hair, but it's not a big deal. It's easier than you can, if the hair's on top, you can just go like right under, but like I said, this it's not too bad to do it just this way. And then other shadows, there'll be some under her eyebrows, kind of in a triangular shape here. And here. The nose is kind of tricky. By the way, I didn't really specify, but we're going to have the light kind of go in this direction. It's just easier for the shape. So, you know, your source of light, say, is right here. We're trying to picture highlights, you know, they'll hit like the bridge of the nose, and then the shadows will hit like, you know, indents, curves and stuff like that. So that's how I'm going with this. So the main shadows under her chin and just her whole area here. In the face design, usually it'll kind of go out like that. I know this looks a little bit weird right now. Usually what ends up happening is major shadow here, indents a bit where the eye is. And once again, if you're wondering how you know this, mostly you'll use a reference to get the shadows really good. I'm just kind of doing general shadows right now. So under the lip, there'll be a shadow, and kind of, you know, in the lip area there. And then usually a little bit here. And I know that looks a little extreme. We're going to work on this in a minute. And shadows here. Likely there'll be a little bit of light here, and then the shadows will be kind of there'll be like a triangle of shadows in the arm here, and then there'll be more down here. The neck has a bit of an indent here where your arteries are. You can just kind of roughly put that in. If she's, you know, shirtless here, or just has like a tube top or something, her collarbone areas will be right around that area. And I'm going to take the highlights now, add a couple here under the eye, here. This is kind of a weird area. It kind of depends on the person. We can add a little bit of a highlight there. Let's see. We'll add one here. Eventually you will add one up here. I know that sounds a bit weird, but it's just the jaw catching it there. A little bit on the neck down here. Big one on the shoulder. And that's pretty good for just the basic one. I know it looks really, really messy right now, but you'll just end up refining it. That's what it looks like without the line art. And don't worry too much. I'm going to go ahead and just jump in and work a little bit of a shadow under here. I'm going to take this mid-tone back and fix this area here. And I'm just switching with the X key back and forth. Just kind of, you know, putting in my zones, put a little bit of highlight on the bottom lip there. Let's see. That looks pretty good. Some of this just, you know, kind of thinking about it. So we have kind of a basic nose shape, and I know it looks a bit odd here. There will be a bit of shadow there, but it won't be so extreme. And then I'm gonna, without that line, I'm gonna see the basic shape. I'm gonna want this to actually come down a bit like that. And I knew I'd want to bring that chin out a bit. And that's okay. I'll go ahead and boost this up. I'm going to take that away here. There we go. Okay. So I know we're no longer following this line, but that's okay. You can just change it now if you want. Just go back up to your sketch layer and bring this sketch out if it bothers you. I probably won't be using, or I wouldn't normally be using the sketch too much more, but since I'm doing this tutorial, I'll probably stick to it pretty close. So there's that, and that's a little bit more onto what we're doing now currently. And you can kind of see if you make this smaller, it does resemble somewhat the shape of a human, and you can see the shadows, even though they're quite a mess right now. They kind of help define a 3D effect. So let's go ahead and finish up by adding just a few shadows to her hair, and then in the next tutorial I'll talk about how to refine these features and how to blend that and all that, so tune in to that if you're still interested. So let's go ahead and we'll take her hair and we're going to make shadows. This will be her midtone. We'll take shadows and we'll take a few highlights, and I'm going to bump the highlights into that yellow zone. And I'm going to actually change my opacity, cut it down to about 48%, that's good. So we'll add just all we're doing here is a few places where we think the light will catch it, and you can just kind of add some. I'm hitting X now to do some of the shadows, and that'll definitely be this area here under the light, like if the light source is there. So we'll go ahead and add, I hit a Command Z there. I'll add a few more shadows here. This whole back hairstyle will be nice and dark. We don't have to worry too much about that. We're just trying to get the basic shape still. Okay, that's not too bad. And we'll just, you know, her part area would be pretty dark, so we'll add a little bit there, and that doesn't look too bad. Right now it looks kind of like a weird plastic creature, but it'll refine out and look a little more detailed in the future. So I'm going to end this here. On the next video, like I said, we'll do some more blending. I'm going to show you how to make this look like an actual, you know, nose and cheek and mouth. And I'll probably leave the hair to a whole other tutorial, but see you on the next video.